One of the things when I was thinking about this conversation with you, 2025 was really interesting in that I think a lot of people always thought, oh, when there's an industry uh, bit of a collapse, when things kind of reel back a little bit, reality TV is going to be fine. It's cheaper programming. That's going to be okay. And that's not been the case at all.
Yeah, it is. I think unscripted being a pretty mature genre, or at least like this modern era, the Survivor on version of what reality TV is just suffering in the exact same way that other shows are. In some ways, more so. Like there were, production has left LA for other countries, and there are people who just don't have jobs at all. And I'm in the middle of reporting my second annual kind of like survey of unscripted creators, producers, all the behind the scenes people who do this work. And, some of them have found some stability this year, but for many of them, it's the same thing. And some, like, people who've won Emmys for their past work are out and not able to come back and find jobs, and this sort of just like hits the end of their careers, which is really sad.
And some of it, I think, was driven by, like with Disney, they just decided apparently, you know what? We're just not going to spend money on Nat Geo anymore. And they just shut down pretty much everything.
It's
And that was really disruptive.
Yeah, super. And it's like it's so wild because the shows that they were producing had linear viewers. Like I'm sure they have models and data that show that whatever the cost of those shows are weren't worth whatever they thought they were. But there's now, you know, many people, I don't know, I don't want to like estimate how many people are really upset about this or looking, but they're looking for something on TV, these channels that they pay for. And now it's become another zombie network, or, once in a while with a Chris Hemsworth documentary, I guess, because he's the only person left there. Um, and I think I did a piece a little while ago with an interview or with a producer who was on one of the Life Below Zero shows, and 2 years ago knew that it was coming to an end back then. So this was like, writing's been on the wall, but she was so smart in that her name is Mickey Ramos, and she gathered together fans of the show in a Facebook group, like got tens of thousands of Facebook fans, and then used them to sort of talk to, communicate with, and then helped her monetize a YouTube channel on which she's now producing basically a version of one of those Life Below Zero shows, which to me just shows not only that ingenuity, but the fact that there's still an audience who is left out. And yeah, like I don't understand these companies just abandoning these cable networks and viewers wholesale and just assuming they're going to jump on your streaming platform where they can't find anything in the shows that they loved or have been canceled anyway.
Well, yeah, I remember reading that and think it was really fascinating. And I mean, I think some of this may be driven by the fact that I certainly know on the scripted side it's the case. Executives look at stuff and it's like, well, if this thing's only going to make us a little bit of money, it's not worth it. If it's not a huge thing, then we just don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, which I don't know. Again, like they must know something I don't, I want to say or pretend, but it feels so ridiculous to like, it's like this kind of Silicon Valley mentality that I think has infected Hollywood and other businesses, that like if we can't have this insane growth and this like just massive profit, then we're not successful. But like you can be really successful and just kind of continue on. You don't have to grow exponentially year over year. If you're making a profit on a show, it's covering all the expenses and it's making your company money. What are we complaining about here? Like, why is that a bad thing? And I don't, it's like, I think this mentality will or is imploding. And we'll see that continuing in the years to come.
Sadly, unfortunately, this year we still have Hunter Fieri around, so we haven't managed to get rid of him yet.
Nope, no, the Nepo babies will always survive, I think. And oh my gosh, I feel so bad for him every time he turns up on one of his dad's shows, because it's just like someone needs to just say like, it's okay that you're not good at this, and like do something else. Like I wish people would say that to me about things sometimes. And so I wish he had someone in his life to say, yeah, it's okay. This is not for you.
Did you see the Tilly Ramsey show that was on Prime Video?
I did not. Is it as
Well,
bad, better?
she had done when she was a little kid, she did a show for Universal Kids where it was
Mm,
kind of like a quasi cooking thing. So in this thing, she's cooking, and so her first guest for her first episode is, go figure, her dad. Um, you know,
what a get.
yeah, and I mean she's a fine person, but it's the same sort of thing. It's like she's charming enough, I guess, but she can sort of barely cook, and she's awkward on camera, and you're just like, I get that you want to give your kids something, but you're not doing them any favors at all.
Yeah, not at all. And yeah, uh, and yet here we are. We keep getting those, or like all of these celebrity travel shows, which I guess are a little bit better than the Nepo baby shows, but like also just like we don't need to give a celebrity more money to travel around the world.
I will have to say that some of the British ones I really enjoy because they're just these odd combinations of people. Um, there's one out there with the one old the ex-judge on Dancing with the Stars, the
Oh, Len
older guy.
Goodman, or
Yeah,
no? Yeah,
yeah, Lynn go. Yeah, he's teamed up with somebody else and they're traveling around Europe and it's really insane just because it's so awkward, but and neither one of them are particularly quote stars. So it's
right.
it's it's sort of funny to see, but yeah, I agree. I mean, I was looking back at the list of stuff that premiered this year, and there were like a couple shows which were seemed to be, at least to me, massive failures. One of which was the Extreme Makeover Home Edition reboot that they did.
Yeah, it just I think I'm glad, but it fizzled super fast to the point that like I don't even remember hearing it go away or like just I don't think anyone cared anymore, which considering what I saw of the episodes that I watched, I'm glad for that because it just like it somehow like stayed just as gross as before while also somehow not being interesting at all. Like they just skipped over all the work. So it just like fast forwarded to the like, we and then like they were also just like I think they've lost the plot entirely when you're just going to build a brand new house. That's not a makeover anymore. That's just a build. And so what are we here for? Like if we just like I think it's much better. It's like the charm of Trading Spaces was that just, one room in your house would be transformed in 2 days with some paint and some hay glued to your wall by a crazy designer. And, even if the designs were cool on Extreme Makeover, just like we didn't even see them to come together. We didn't see the thought process or the designer behind them. And what's the point of that?
I mean, one show that I recommend to people along those lines that I think it's running now on the BBC Home Fast channel. It's a show called DIY SOS.
Hmm,
And it's essentially Extreme Home Makeover, but the absolute opposite of the show as far as intent. It's every episode is hooked around, like with Extreme Home Makeover. Oh, this, they've got handicapped kids, or this dad's been paralyzed, or whatever. But they redo the house that the people have. Like a lot of times, it's a flat, and they
hmm,
knock out the flat, and but they're working inside these constraints of space, and they're not building them a huge house, and it's just. And it's very gentle, and it's sort of the show that you wish Extreme Home Makeover was, but
right.
isn't.
Yeah, and exactly. And especially I think if you connect like, American reality TV shows certainly love telling people's stories. And as much as I want to learn about people, like they're kind of now just being used as like, here is an emotion that you should react to kind of
Yeah.
situation. But in that case, like, maybe there's someone who's now using a wheelchair and can't access their flat, right? And like, I think it's interesting to learn about accessibility and also like how do you adapt a space for your needs? And that sounds interesting versus just like, yeah, building a giant mansion in the middle of nowhere.
I mean, I guess that's my issue with like American Idol. Okay, everyone's got a backstory. It's like, okay, I get it, but how many
It's real.
stories can you hear about, someone's died or so, and it's a horrible thing, but just as a viewer.
I think that's the problem really is that they all start to blend together and then therefore none of them have any impact. Like on American Ninja Warrior,
Yeah.
like I loved that show for its athleticism and just for like the extreme things people were able to do. And of course, like some of them had interesting stories, but now it is just like extended bio packages about tragedy and then like 10 seconds of racing and then more. And it's like we've lost the correct balance, I think. Like I want to get to know people on reality TV. I want to understand who they are, and so they're not just caricatures, but they become caricatures when you use them just as like emotional weapons against the viewer, basically.
What now, is there a show that you sort of point people to with where they say, "Well, I don't really like unscripted stuff," or that's not really my thing," where you just say, "No, watch this show because I think you'll like it."
I mean, for a while, it was the Great British Bake Off just
Mhm.
because it has that charm. Everyone's friendly. They're still challenged. There's still eliminations, but and so I think a lot of people are really familiar with that now. So my go-to is the Great Pottery Throwdown,
Oh,
just because it is another show with people who are talented at their craft, really being challenged. And also, do you know it? Have you watched?
yeah.
Okay, so yeah, like the main judge, Keith, the fact that he gets emotional over what people have done, and sometimes not even like good work, just their effort, is
Mhm.
like such a shift from what we usually expect in reality TV, which is like the Gordon Ramsay screaming because you're not doing well enough. Like he appreciates their time, their love, their concern, and even if like the pottery breaks or whatever things can happen, he understands that because he's a professional. So I do direct people there because it's like you still do get the kind of intensity, the drama. This is an artificial situation. Like a real potter isn't going to be asked to create something in a day, right? They're
Yeah.
going to have time to conceive it, to really work it, to do all the pieces that they need to do. So you're seeing people under intense pressure, but you're also seeing a real love and care put into that work and into the judging too, which again, remarkable.
Yeah, that is a great show, and it's funny. There's a show on I think it's on BBC now that the producers sent me a couple episodes of, and I hope it gets picked up here, called Games of Yarn. And basically
Uh,
there's people doing yarn. And the funny thing is all the participants now are all upset. They're threatening to sue. Things. Oh, you made us look foolish, or because we were complaining about crochet or whatever. So it's funny how these really genre, very niche things can be very passionate to people.
Yeah, for sure. And I think especially I think I mean the UK certainly has plenty of sensational shows and stuff, but I think there's also a sense that like they take things a little more seriously, and especially people who are crafting. It's not Love Island UK. Like they don't think they're signing up for Love Island, where I think most or many Americans, I hope, knowing when they're going on a reality TV show, would expect that like the sensational is probably gonna win out over the mundane.
I've been watching like the Food Network since they started, basically. I mean, just forever. Um, and most of it I just can't watch. I just, it just seems like sort of a regurgitated version of the other show. Two of them that still, my wife and I watch every time: Tournament Champions
Mhm.
and Alex versus America, which I think both work really, really well.
Yeah, I love them just like you do. And I think they both brought something new to the table. And that's like, I think, they're obviously iterating on the same format. They're not brand new in any stretch of
Yeah.
the imagination, but there's something about each of them that really does, I think, like just spark something new. I guess I'm trying to work backwards, but I'm just going to go right to it. I think the big thing about both of those shows is the blind judging.
Mhm.
So the judges who don't know who's competing really does change the equation on
Yeah.
these kind of shows. Whereas like, and granted on Alex versus America, they know that Alex is one of the competitors.
Yeah.
So, if you have like four dishes and one is like beautiful French food, like maybe you guess that that's Alex's, for example. But I've also seen episodes where they were legitimately shocked that Alex, like, I think it was the episode with chefs who cook Mexican food
Hmm.
and were from of Mexican descent or from
Yeah.
Mexico, and they were shocked that Alex, the judges who were also Mexican chefs, were like couldn't believe that Alex did one of these dishes because it was so authentic more than the other one. So just shows Alex's talent. And anyway, I think the blind judging just sort of gets around what a lot of these other shows get stuck into, which is like a little bit too much of the personality and like the implicit biases that might come along with that. Like you don't like this person because they're snotty, or maybe you're holding this person to a higher standard because you see yourself in them somehow. And with these shows, that goes away. And especially with Tournament of Champions being like numerically scored on top of that, it feels like it's the most objective version of a subjective show possible.
And the contestants for the most part seem legitimately upset when they lose. A lot of those shows is like, oh yeah, I lost. You see people who are just, yeah, sometimes they'll lose and they won't come back for 2 seasons because they're so upset that they lost. And that gives you an idea of how much that's a legitimate show.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Iron Chef Alex Guarnaschelli lost in the first season
Yeah.
of TMC and didn't come back until the holiday version. So, I don't know if like, and Alex has lost before, but like Alex clearly cares about competition. And I think that's fun too. Like you want to see people, or at least I want to see people who care about what they're doing and are competitive and like really are invested in this in a way that, some people might not be, or some people might just be like, I'm here for the experience or the TV exposure or whatever.
Well, you she they in this season of Alex's show, they've been sort of manipulating it a little bit so that she would lose. And so she lost in one of the shows.
Yep.
And she was like, she's just said to the camera, get away. I just need some time. And they had these shots of her walking back and forth in the warehouse. Like she was really upset. She just, it meant a lot to her. And yeah, like you said, that it means something as a viewer. It's like, okay, they're not just doing this to cash a paycheck.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's actually wild that it took this long for her to lose in the first round, I guess,
Yeah.
although knowing how much she's done these competitions. But you're right, it is funny that this season is basically like, let's really try to get a loss out of Alex in the first round, especially. And yeah,
Well, I don't want to take too much more of your time. So
no.
let's wrap it back around to what we were talking about before this started, which was, is there a show that happened this season that you think people slept on or they should have watched more that you just really liked, but it just didn't do what you thought it was going to do?
That's a fantastic question. And it's like, this is also one of those things where there's the kind of recency bias that I
Yeah.
think all of us in this business tend to have. I'm just like scrolling through some of the things that I read about. So I really enjoyed Crime Scene Zero on Netflix.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if you had a chance to catch that, but like
Yeah.
it's just another show from South Korea, but produced for Netflix, and thus we get a version. And just like it was so like American shows don't get this detailed, this expansive, this long. Like that was so cool just to see basically like essentially a version of Clue or an escape room murder mystery playing out over like 3 hours of television. And ones you actually kind of have to pay attention to like catch the clues and follow the story, which has clearly been beautifully and lovingly crafted. And I think some of that is time and money and also just what you're expecting from the audience. And so I appreciate that, you know, I don't know if it's only, I think we've seen a lot of unscripted shows from South Korea that like last year's The Boyfriend, which will be
Yeah.
back this year, as a dating show that just like kind of subverted all expectations and just kind of sat with people and breathed in a way that just American shows tend not to. So I would say though that's, definitely Crime Scene Zero as a really good example. Trying to think of what else. Not Project Runway, which was just go away and stay away because that was um, really kind of sad. I think, it's not for like it's on Bravo, so it certainly has enough people viewing it. But I was really surprised by a show called Next Gen NYC, which was basically like a new Housewives just with people in their 20s. The really interesting part of it is some of them are children of housewives, so people we saw as like little kids on
Yeah.
seasons who are now grown up, and some of whom have like clearly followed in their parents' path, and some of whom are like actively, object or fighting against it, like sort of rejecting that. And in addition to just kind of the normal drama, so it offered a few extra layers to the typical Bravo show that I usually don't see. And I'm not sure, like, it didn't seem to break out in the same way that other housewife shows do in terms of the attention it got or the gossip and stuff. So I'm hoping that, given another year or so, that it will pick up and just for those people who like the soapy drama and nothing against that at all because I love it too. I think Next Gen NYC was a show to check out.
Well, I think my pick is kind of a very specific one, but I talk it up to people. Netflix has this Chef's Table series where it's usually an
Hmm.
episode about each one. And a lot of those episodes are PR basically. But it's
Right,
very even the one with Jose Andres this season was just, it's great that he does this stuff, but you didn't learn anything about him. He said the same things that he says in
right.
every interview. But there's one with Jamie Oliver, which is actually kind of remarkable. And I like Jamie Oliver fine, but you find out that his TV career started on a fluke. I mean, he literally was called into the restaurant at the last minute. There happened to be a crew there. They happened to ask him the dish he was making, and he explained it. And the producer looked at it later and went, "Wow, there's something about this kid." And everything
Wow.
started from there. And you also get to see, he did this series of shows here in the US where he's trying to get kids to eat better and stuff. And in the
Right.
midst of
The
that,
famous chicken nugget episode.
oh yeah, and in the midst of
Yeah.
that, his restaurant empire collapses. It shows him in the taxi cab and hearing, "What do you mean all my restaurants are closed?" All
Mm.
40 of them have just shut. And it was a little bit less scripted, and I really felt like I knew more about the guy, which you don't usually find in those kind of episodes. So
Yeah, that's good to know. I'll check it out because yeah, I watched and loved Chef's Table at first just because it was, both cinematically different and just
yeah,
profiling people in a kind of deeper way. But I lost interest and probably for the reason you're saying, which is it was like even if I'd never heard of the person, I didn't feel like I was really accessing them or their
yeah.
food. It was just much more, like surface level. And that's like I would rather like spend some time and get to know someone.
Well, that was probably the one I'd recommend, and I appreciate you doing this. Like I
Yeah,
said, I'm just
absolutely.
this genre a lot better than I do, so and there's a lot going on, so hopefully people will get some suggestions on what to watch or not watch.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, it's a there's certainly still no shortage of TV despite all this industry upheaval, and I know that there's definitely like I think we're like the types of shows that are getting made and stuff are changing and becoming less expensive and whatever, but there still is a lot of great TV out there, and my hope is that we can still continue to get more and let talented artists, including an unscripted, do their work.
And less Hunter Fieri, but maybe that's a
Yeah,
personal thing.
100%.